There's a deeper point having to do with their relationship. For he is teaching in the 1840s, and I think it is but the extension of what he learned that morning, that the other statement of the Master, namely, I do nothing but what I have seen the Father do, has infinite implications. How could he have seen it? As a witness. President Joseph Fielding Smith replied, not as a witness, he saw it in vision. Christ was blessed before he entered mortality to see in vision what the Father had done before him in a prior eon, if you will. And again, the relationship is exact. If Christ himself was uniquely begotten and was firstborn in the Spirit, and if he was the Christ, not only of this earth, but as the prophet taught later, of the galaxy, so before him was the Father himself a Redeemer, having worked out the salvation of a family of which he was a brother, not a father. Now this is deep water. It is drawn as a conclusion by Joseph Smith in his King Follett discourse. And whatever else it may mean, and I take it to be mind-boggling, it at least means this, that the Father by experience knows exactly what his Son has been through. And the Son, by experience, knows exactly what the Father has been through. And when he therefore says, I and my Father are one, it is not a metaphysical identity. It is oneness of spirit, harmonic throbbings of love and insight that can only come in the patterns of eternal redemption. That too, in the mind of a 14-year-old, blossomed and grew as an insight. Next, I turn to the emerging point that I've hinted at, that though we do not know the length of time that the prophet Joseph was there and the instructions occurred, it probably was longer than just the outline we have. We know, for example, that other things were taught him, which he says, I will not notice at this time. So far as I know, he never did commit them to paper. Moreover, some of the enemies of the church have pointed out that the prophet spoke of the visits of angels in connection with his first vision. And some have theorized that he began claiming he saw an angel and then ended embellishing it by claiming he saw the Father and the Son. The truth is that having described all that you're familiar with about the Father and the Son, he says as the closing sentence of an early account, I saw many angels in this vision. It is an enforced either or to say that he either saw the Father and the Son or saw angels. What he saw was both. And it's a fascinating but unanswerable question. Who would have been permitted to be with him in that theophany? What angels were present? We have his teaching that angels are either resurrected personages who have been upon this earth, or they are the spirits of the just who will yet be resurrected, who have been upon this earth, or, as in the rare cases of the Old Testament, they may be not yet embodied persons who come in anticipation. But, said he, there are no angels who minister to this earth, but those who do belong or have belonged to it. Well, that narrows it down to this earth, but don't know that we can narrow it down more than that. The footnote is that he was wearied through these instructions. That the encounter, however long, demanded something from him. You remember he says he came to himself. I think it inappropriate to say it was a trance or a mystic state. I think that the clearest parallel is from the ancient records of Moses and Abraham and Enoch. He was filled with a spirit which enabled him to endure the presence of God. Is that spirit enervating or energizing? My considered answer is yes. It is both. It demands from us concentration and surrender comparable to nothing else possible in this life. But it also confers, in a way, again, transcendent of our finite powers, great capacities, mental, spiritual, and physical. You've all heard the story of how, emerging from the vision called the 3 Degrees of Glory, with his companion in the vision, Sidney Rigdon, it was observed by Philo Dibble and others that the prophet looked strong and that Rigdon looked like he'd been through the war. To which the prophet, with a certain humility, as also condescension, said, Sidney is not as used to it as I am. One grows in the capacity, but he was feeble, and it was difficult for him to go home. You remember, too, that in the encounter with Moroni, repetitive encounter, he was left weak and the father sent him home. Couldn't even quite climb the fence, which for a strong and vigorous boy is interesting. Now I turn to some of the theological extensions of this insight as the prophet later taught. It is the first principle, he said, of revealed religion, to know for a certainty the character of God. I pause to interrupt that that's more than saying it is the first principle to know that God exists. It doesn't use the word existence at all. You can't find one argument in Joseph Smith for the existence of God. Why not? Well, I'll give you the most unkind answer. Because one does not begin to argue about a thing's existence until serious doubts have arisen. The arguments for God are a kind of whistling in the dark. In the absence of the experience of God, men have invented arguments to justify the experience of the absence of God. They have built a rational Tower of Babel and comforted themselves, well, we haven't heard, but he must still be there. But Joseph wasn't speculating. He was reporting his first-hand experience. Prophets always have.
One spring morning in a grove, one boy seeking truth foretold. The heavens opened, he was heard. One prayer answered changed the